Hey everybody, just letting you know I'm kind of sick right now and not really feeling all the best. So I do still want to make some content for y'all, and I have just the thing, but it is going to require us to dive deep into the annals of AI-generated conservative content. Now, I know, this is not something that I thought I was ever going to be having to deal with in my lifetime, but we are now at the point where people who have absolutely zero talent have the ability to generate whatever they want out of thin air merely by prompting whatever the hell they want. So before we get into things, I want to celebrate people who actually do have talent and skill, who do not generate things out of thin air, regardless of what actually is going to come out the other end. We're going to look at the fan art section before we get into anything. And the first bit we have here is from Lass Arts, and they said, I heard something about an Oshi Day, and while I don't stream, I did try a few times, and thanks Suris for inspiring me. So they're technically my Oshi. Have a redraw of my second fan art of Suris. The left one is the new ones, that's this one, and then this is the old one. So there are two different ones here, and we see a lot of really good progress. Lass Arts, thank you so much for your fan art submission. If y'all want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the video. With that said, let's go ahead and see what's going on over here. So I actually came across this guy's channel because he was live, and as I was waking up this morning, he just happened to pop up into my algorithm. So I wanted to go ahead and see what's going on here. The channel's name is Make America Great Again. He's got like 13.6 thousand subscribers, and when I was watching, he had like 170 people viewing him. So I figured this had to be top tier content. So I went to look at his actual page, and if you look here, everything is some kind of AI-generated thumbnail with a few exceptions. Like, there's a lot of interesting things here that we could pick apart. The Democratic Party is more corrupt than you thought, but the video is 9 seconds long.
This is our Independence Day, boys. Let's make America great again.
Like, it's just an AI-generated piece. Researchers from University of British Columbia have presented something.
If the underpinning of existence is fundamentally non-algorithmic, then the universe cannot be a simulation in the conventional sense.
Okay, I don't know if that's AI generated or not. I have no way of knowing if that one's AI generated or not, but it's 9 seconds like everything else here, so it seems like something that's been ran through a prompt generator. Like, look.
There's a new sheriff in town, and MAGA won the showdown.
Like, the entire thing feels like it just is fake, but apparently, alongside a lot of this AI-generated conservative content is his live stream, where I assume we're going to be getting some actual content instead of, you know, this stuff, where it's saying drain the swamp and it's just an AI-generated toilet. And that's it. Like, you could have just shot an actual toilet. You could have just gone to the scene of the crime at your actual bathroom, and you could have shot a toilet, and it would have been fine. So let's actually go check out his live stream and see what's going on over there. Maybe there's something that I'm missing here. Okay, he's streaming himself sleeping. Okay, I guess I've done that before, technically, during a subathon. How long are we doing this? So you set your stream up, and you just had people talking about you sleeping. Oh, there we are. There's that dude who just sent a weird FaceTime to his girlfriend look. Okay. Now let's actually see what we can find. Let's see if there's any actual substance in here.
Jobless. You have nothing but negative stuff to say. I make money. I own my own company. I own my own business. Have my own shop.
Okay, so he seems to be responding to negative comments about his appearance in bed. I mean, I don't think I sleep with a MAGA hat on. I feel like that's like the most virgin behavior I could ever do. But yeah, he woke up in bed and started a stream. I can think of weirder things people have done, like saying strange words on stream for hundreds of dollars or channel points. I can think of stranger things an individual could do, you know?
I'm close to 5 million views right now. Well, working on 6 million right now, 6 million views. But that's what I do, is create content. Hey, how's it going?
So technically, he's not incorrect. If we flash back over to his channel, his actual analytics are, you know, he's earning anywhere between $1.5 to $3,000 a month. He's got 10 uploads a week. Like, he's got 124,000 views in the last 7 days. He is doing very well. But when you look at the actual content here, it is all AI generated nothing. It is 9-second prompts, 20-second prompts, and most of these are generating 0 views. They're gaining nothing. So where is he actually getting all of these views from? Well, the majority of them seem to be coming from this old school biker vibe he's trying to go for with live streaming. And he's got a ton of these with, you know, him just here with a biker helmet on, him with a biker helmet on in front of a green screen, actually. And I'm just curious about what the content is here, because it's just him staring, doing nothing. Now, he's got a few more reviews on these, like, car-servative conversations where he's here in the car, ostensibly talking to the camera, but, I am 15 seconds into this video, and that hasn't happened yet. So, it seems really hard to actually find the content that this guy is supposedly creating, because a lot of this isn't content. It's just kind of watching some guy. And this wasn't what I was expecting to find when, again, my first interaction with this individual was through their live stream. Now, let's go back to the live stream to see if anything else has happened over there.
YouTube allows artificial intelligence, and that's what I use to edit my content, create my videos. Of course, I wish there was some improvement because you have no control over what AI does.
And because you have no control over it would be evidence that you aren't creating content. You're not making anything. You are typing things into a prompt and seeing what comes out. And the minute that you admit that you don't actually have any control over that content is the minute that you admit that you didn't actually create it in the first place. I would actually argue that by focusing on AI-generated content, instead of being a content creator, you're just being really lazy.
Well, first of all, I'm not lazy. First of all, after 8.5 years in the Army and 3 tours to Iraq and 2 back surgeries, knee surgery, the reason why I don't work for anybody is because I don't want to work for anybody. I don't want a job.
So, looking at the chat, the actual reason that people were calling you lazy has nothing to do with your time in the military and how you were treated in there. I, for one, come from a military family, so I have a lot of respect for people who end up going into the armed forces. I do not respect the things America does with its armed forces, but I respect the individual people who try to make a better life for themselves in it. However, if you decide to take the lazy way out of making content, instead of actually learning to use an editing software, you use AI generation, or instead of actually learning how to edit your own videos, you just leave in 1,000 ums, ahs, and everything, and just speak from the hip and don't actually do any research in anything you do. All of these are hallmarks of lazy content creation. Nobody is arguing that you are lazy in other aspects of your life. But I think it's very fair to say that as a content creator, by relying on AI, especially AI to talk about conservative shit. Like, it's both distasteful and also incredibly silly to try to argue that you are not doing the lazy thing when you yourself are basically telling us that you use a software type that does not allow you to have any control over your own content. You have no control over your own content because you aren't creating content, and you aren't creating content because you are a lazy content creator. Again, you may be an incredibly well-skilled individual in other aspects of your life, and I can respect those things. But in the realm of content creation, you're actively taking the easiest way out instead of learning the skill. But if y'all remember, I'm here because of the political bent to things. Him using AI is, well, he's just lazy in that regard. But let's get to the politics.
Just like I'm content with voting for Trump and because no one else can run this country better than he does, and that's the way it is.
Man, I really feel like I'm getting pranked. I really feel like this is a person who doesn't actually believe the things he says, but says them anyway. And I don't really have any evidence behind that other than just vague vibes. Like, I want you to envision for a minute a person who wanted to be inflammatory on the internet for the purpose of generating income, just for the purpose of generating income. What angles of approach would they take? What vectors of attack would they utilize? And many of those vectors of attack would be using AI generation because it makes content quickly and easily, and if something goes viral, it goes viral, and then taking politically inflammatory positions without being able to back them up Mott and Bailey style. And that's something that a lot of Trump voters do naturally, and also people who are opposed do because it makes them look like Trump voters. I can't tell if this guy is a Poe or not. But I guess we'll go ahead and run with this as if he means everything he says. So, how do you tell if a country is performing well? Well, there are about 12 factors you would look at to see if a country is performing well. They are the poverty level in your country, the GDP of your country, the population of your country, the child mortality rate, the fertility rate of your country, the life expectancy for anybody in your country, hunger and undernourishment in your country, the education sector of your country, the years of schooling and literacy that anybody has at any given time, the improved water sources and sanitation of your country, energy access, energy use, and CO2 emissions. Let's look at CO2 real quick. If you look over at Statista, carbon dioxide emissions from energy consumption in the U.S. from 1975 to 2024, you'll see that we were on a steady increase of our CO2 emissions. We were polluting the atmosphere quite a bit. And then sometime around the Obama presidency, suddenly we started dropping a ton in this regard over the next few years. And you can see that until about 2016 when we got President Trump. And then President Trump kicked us out of the Paris Climate Accords. Then you can see over the next couple years, we actually had an increase peaking in 2018 from previous numbers during the Donald Trump presidency. Then it started to decrease again as COVID hit, hitting record lows in 2020. And then as the agricultural industries started to build themselves back up, and as infrastructure started to bring workers back in post-COVID, we started to go into an increase again, and then we decreased back down to about normal levels in 2023 and 2024. But you might ask yourself, what does that mean for Donald Trump's presidency? Do you have any data for the current year? And no, not yet. But we do have things Trump has done, like getting rid of the Department of Energy's Renewable Energy Climate offices and slashing $8 billion from the funding for the exact offices that have allowed us to maintain this downwards trend of CO2 emissions. If one of the 12 metrics for determining how well your country is doing is how much it pollutes the atmosphere, we are going to be polluting it more because Trump is taking steps to make sure that happens. Now, we can go to macrotrends.net and look at the life expectancy in the United States and see what that actually looks like for us here. And you'll notice that over the years, we generally have an increase in life expectancy with a drop in life expectancy right here during the previous Trump presidency at 2020 with his mishandling of COVID. Now, is that entirely his fault? No. Everybody was being stupid during COVID. This is not a uniquely Donald Trump thing. But all you can say in regards to him is that as far as life expectancy in the United States is concerned, he's mostly been able to maintain the previously expected life expectancy with this drop right here at the end of his presidency for life expectancy because of COVID, with an increase in life expectancy afterwards as we got better at handling COVID. This one is one of those situations where he's at best fucking neutral. If we look at GDP from the exact same website, we notice something very interesting. We notice that during Donald Trump's presidency, the GDP increase of the United States, the growth for the United States, was to the tune of about $3 trillion. GDP did actually grow during his presidency, with it flatlining here in 2023 due to COVID. But you'll notice that under Biden's presidency, the GDP grew by $2 trillion in a single year, and then by another $2.5 trillion in the subsequent years, with a $1.7 trillion growth in the second to last year of Biden's presidency. Now, what this means is Donald Trump, during his presidency, was only able to grow the GDP of the United States at the exact same rate of basically every other president. Very low, very slow. The GDP growth under Biden was comparatively very huge. Does that mean that Donald Trump is bad at running the economy? Not necessarily. Does that mean that his previous political opponent was better at running the economy? Now, I will say something as well, though. GDP doesn't matter to normal people like you or I. Like, that doesn't mean anything to those of us who work either W-2 or 1099 jobs and have an income that doesn't quite yet hit six figures or higher. The thing that probably matters more to normal people like you or me is the unemployment rate, the amount of people who are actually able to work jobs. And, well, the data looks about how you would expect. When you look at the actual data going on in the world, the employment rate was going up a fuck ton during the Bush presidency, and the employment rate started to snowball downhill during the Obama presidency. And once Donald Trump got into office, the employment rate was still going downhill, but not at the exact same rate as it was under Obama. The employment rate actually was still declining, just not as fast. And then, of course, this little spike here happens during COVID. The statistical anomaly of COVID is always going to be a wild thing for me. And again, I can't entirely blame Donald Trump for what happened during COVID. But if you look at the numbers, as soon as we get out of COVID during Biden's presidency, our unemployment rate starts rapidly falling to about the same numbers that it was at during the Trump presidency, and then it starts slowly climbing back up around the time that Donald Trump gets elected. So by the numbers, at best, Donald Trump is able to maintain the economy of the previous president, or he makes it worse by increasing the unemployment rate during his presidential tenure. Now, again, we cannot account for this time right here because this was COVID, and you can't lump every single sin of COVID at the feet of Donald Trump, but the numbers don't really lie here. The unemployment rate is going up under Trump, and that's not what you want in a stable economy. That's the number that matters far more to you or I than GDP, because neither you nor I do any domestic trade at the level where GDP is a thing that we care about past high school. And if you want to look up the other different population statistics, you can. I've provided links in the description so that you can check out the different sites that I'm using to look at this data. But the point is, when you look at Donald Trump, at best, he's as good as a Democrat or does worse. And that seems to be a pretty constant trend across most of his numbers. So people who say there's nobody that can run the country better than him, I feel like they've just really drunk the snake oil that he's been selling, because nobody would ever say that about any previous president. No other president has a fan club this verbose.
So I don't know what to tell you. You get these people out here that like to run their mouth and talk their trash and tell me that, well, yeah, I need to get a job, but yet, you know, who's going to hire a 52-year-old man with 2 major back surgeries and knee surgery? And I don't want to sit behind no damn desk. So I like what I do. I like my YouTube channel. VA medically retired me. I wanted to retire out of the military anyway, but after 8.5 years of service, they med board me because pretty much your career's over with once you have back and knee surgery.
So I wanted to keep this part of the video in because I wanted to actually point out that this is the kind of person that Donald Trump preys on in general. A person who does not have any prospects for work right now because of injuries or what have you, has been in the military, is ostensibly very patriotic, but the exact same person who would vote for Donald Trump, who needs medical VA benefits in order to survive, votes for the president who is ready and willing to throw away core medical staff from the VA. The exact people who would be needed not only for your therapy, but to actually get you moved through the incredibly annoying and bureaucratic process of doing anything with the fucking VA. Trump is directly responsible for gutting those exact agencies. So it saddens me to see somebody who went in and served our country, who got injured in the field of duty, in however it happened, doesn't really matter to me, but got injured serving the United States of America, and is happily voting for a person who has on record thrown out several of the people who would be required in order to help this exact person. This is the kind of scheme that Trump runs. He sells himself like the guy who can run America, who can do what the everyman needs, but the things the everyman needs, he historically guts out of the country. He does everything in his power to hurt those people, but he sells himself as a person who doesn't. The number of medical staff on hand to treat any veteran has fallen every single month since Trump took office. The VA has experienced a net loss of 2,000 registered nurses at the start of this fiscal year, and another 1,300 medical assistants and nursing assistants to the tune of 1,100 were all also gone as well. 800 doctors, 500 social workers, and 150 psychologists. Those social workers and psychologists, by the way, are the ones who are going to be moving you through the bureaucratic process of getting your medical disability. I am at least happy that you got yours, because nobody should have to deal with serving their country and then not getting paid back for the stuff that they've done. But at the same time, it saddens me as an individual who cares about people in the military, seeing somebody who was in the military basically vote for the guy who's going to shit on all of his other fellow servicemen. And that's not even to say about the federal funding that's getting cut for several now non-professional degrees for college students. Donald Trump declassified several different degrees, psychology degrees, nursing degrees specifically, from the professional categorization, which would have allowed them to be eligible for student loans. Now, granted, you and I can both probably agree the student loan system is super stupid. It is a horribly predatory system that barely pays back what you put into it. But at the same time, for many people, it's the only way that they can receive these higher bits of education that they need in order to fill our waning nursing and piloting industries, things that Donald Trump is gutting himself. And this isn't information coming from leftwingmedia.org. This is from The Independent. This is a right-wing newsletter. So I left this bit in not only because I'm sympathetic to your plight, but I also wanted to show that the person you're voting for is directly gutting the industry that you now rely on for survival. But I also want to make a note that I was looking at the dude's live chat during this time, and there were plenty of people, and I don't know their political affiliations, but who spent their time basically berating the guy for not having a job, without knowing his medical history, without knowing his situation. I am perfectly willing to berate him for his laziness as a content creator. I think there's nothing wrong with that, because what he is doing is in fact lazy content creation. But I also don't think that you're going to win anybody over if your method of arguing with them is to call them lazy when they had a bunch of spinal fusion surgeries and can barely get out of bed and are on medical assistance. Like that feels like one of the stupidest lines of attack, and I see liberals do it all the time. I see it from the right wing as well, but again, this is a right winger we are talking about. The criticism that he's going to be receiving in this time is gonna be from liberals or the left.
It's not about the thought process. It's not about whether you think that I'm brainwashed or I think you're brainwashed. It's who runs the country better. Kamala Harris never could run the country. And then Joe Biden was a piece of crap about to kill over. Who else was I going to vote for?
So this one's an interesting point to me because we get a couple of bits of information here about his thought process for voting. One, there's a little bit here about people calling him brainwashed and him saying, I'm not brainwashed. I'm just going to say a person who wakes up in the morning with a Trump hat is likely the type of person that other people are going to accuse of being brainwashed. Maybe don't throw that stone from the glass house you're obviously living in. That said, when it comes to the thought process of Kamala Harris or Biden, again, by the numbers, Donald Trump is at best a bad Democrat and at worst bad for the economy, the GDP, the unemployment rate, all of the things that actually matter to material existence for you and I. The guy who runs the country better is the guy gutting the exact same medical programs that you rely on to survive. The best guy forward for running the country in your mind is the guy who's going to strip you of everything you need in order to survive. Or at best, he's going to strip future servicemen who get in the same bad situation as you from their opportunity to get the treatment that they need. Because any veteran at all who has ever dealt with the VA can tell you that the bureaucratic red tape of the VA is the worst part of the VA. Convincing the VA that you need something, especially when it's service related, is one of the most nightmarish experiences of paperwork and lack of human empathy you will ever go through. And I've got military family who have complained about this. I've got military friends that I play Magic the Gathering with who have complained about this. You need more psychologists, you need more workers in the VA to take care of people. Your guy is gutting them. And when you say that Kamala Harris can't run the country, my question would be why? Like, by what metric? Again, at worst, she's going to be a worse than Barack Obama Democrat. Or at least she would have been. Now, I can say that I did not like that she ran a milquetoast campaign. I can say that she ran a fairly garbage campaign against a fairly easy political opponent to win against after what happened during January 6th. But instead, we don't have her. We have Trump. We don't have data on her specifically in regards to running the country. We have some stuff from California, and you can maybe pull some stuff from her time as vice president, but all in all, you're not going to get data on a Harris administration without a Harris administration to criticize. But you do have data on a Biden administration. And again, Biden was in office during the times that we had those numbers. So when you say things like Biden was bad and about to keel over, you and I actually agree on that. We agree that Biden was not the best choice. We agree that Biden is too old to be the president. We agree on all of that. But there are things that Biden did that I personally will defend, like allowing trans people back into the military. Right now, the military is one of the few guaranteed ways that a trans person is able to get their gender-affirming surgeries and their HRT without having to go through some type of dehumanizing process other than what boot camp and the military in general provides. It is also one of the most stable ways to earn an income. People who are in the military have guaranteed paychecks. In many times, they have guaranteed time off base that they are able to spend with their families. Not a lot, but they do have it. They get to experience time in other countries, and they also get the benefit of many of them being able to live on base, which cuts their housing costs. It is one of the most economically advantageous things that a person can do for starting off a family, or if they know that they've got some medical things that need to be taken care of that do not stop them from being able to operate in the line of duty. Again, I am happy that Biden brought trans people back into the United States as far as our military is concerned. I am happy that Joe Biden worked with railway workers when they were on strike to get them the things that they needed. I am happy about a lot of the things that Biden actually did. I am not happy that he was not very forthright with his medical conditions in front of the United States. I am not happy with how little we had access to him from a media standpoint, and I'm not happy with him trying to run for president again, despite his age, which basically gutted the entire method that the Democratic Party had for fighting back against a renewed Trump presidency. I think Biden's going to go down in history, as far as I'm concerned, as the Ruth Bader Ginsburg president, the one who was responsible for a lot of positive legislation, but his want to stay in his point of office for longer than he should actively caused a Republican who wanted to destroy the country to get in his seat and be able to start manipulating the country from that seat. It's the same thing that happened with her, and it's what happened with him.
The other thing is the Democrats have showed that really their true colors. Because they always sit there and point the finger at Trump. Trump did this, Trump did that, Trump did this, Trump did that.
He's currently the president, my guy. I feel like if there's anybody to point to, it's him. Also, the conservatives have a majority in the House and the Senate, so if there's anybody to point the finger at, it's the Conservative Party, whom he is the top representative of. I apologize, but this seems like a non-salient point. If you're gonna talk about Democrats, pointing the finger, it only makes sense to point the finger when the guy in charge is the guy to point the finger to.
Trump did this, Trump did that. Why I voted for Trump is basically because the Republican Party can run the country better than the liberal left can. It's case in point.
Oh, are we actually going to provide a citation? Because before you said that the Democratic Party showed their true colors and you didn't give a good example. You just said they pointed fingers at the guy who's objectively to blame. So do we actually have a reason here? You said case in point. I'm here to see the case in point.
But I'm not going to get into it is a compelling argument. It is.
No, absolutely not. That is not a compelling argument. What? No. What are you talking about? There is no compelling argument there. There's no argument. This has to be rage bait. The entire channel has to be rage bait. I refuse to believe that this is a real human being with real opinions. Absolutely not. I am done. I cannot convince myself this is a real person with real thoughts moving through their head. I can't. I'm sorry. I'm out. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.